So it's real important to understand value. Now I'll share with you a fun little story. This is sort of how I learned and got deeply involved in lean. It was the second MBA the hard way. I got involved with and bought a small titanium bicycle manufacturer. It was called Merlin. And these were $5,000 bikes, plus or minus at the time. Today it's the equivalent of what the $10,000 bikes are in front of Starbucks on Sunday morning, right? And you know they're out there, right? So we got involved with the company, and I bought a company that I could afford, which meant it was losing lots and lots of money. And it took 10 weeks to make one of these bikes. And the way we bought the company, I wasn't really supposed to talk to the field and the sales and the shops and all that stuff because it was kind of secretive. And so we just started working harder and harder at building these bikes better and better, faster and faster. And through about 2.5 years of hard work, we went from building a custom titanium bike in 10 weeks to 3 days. So now you could pay an extra $500 for a custom titanium bike. It arrived at the factory, the order. We turned it around in 3 days, shipped it immediately to the shop, and boy, were we proud of ourselves. I mean, the team just totally rocked it with the direction that they had, which was to shorten the lead time for this particular bike. So what do you think the customers said when the bike arrived in 3 days for their $5,000 bike? Too fast. It can't be worth it. Wait a minute, I'm paying $5,000 and you built it in 3 days? Maybe it's not custom. Even worse, we couldn't trust a bike shop to pay us. So we shipped COD. I think some of you know what that is. It's kind of a finance and whatever group here, right? So we shipped COD. What do you think the bike shop owner did the minute the bike arrived and they paid the UPS man with a check? What do you think they did? Called the customer and said, get in here and pay for your bike. And the customer said, dude, I haven't got the scratch ready yet. I mean, I'm not ready for that. And so we totally shattered the whole value system. And so I started calling my customers and saying, what's wrong? Why aren't you happy? And they said, you don't get it. I said, what do you mean? They said, I'm a Harley customer. I said, well, I'm not a Harley rider, so I'm not sure I know what that means. They said, you don't understand. You see, I take great pride in telling my friends I'm on the wait list. And before I knew it, I started asking a bunch of questions, and this was a huge piece of ego purchase. This was sports jewelry. It wasn't really about the piece of metal and how many pounds it weighed. It was about the ego and the bragging and the hanging out in the bike shop and putting all the little bits all over it. And because we got the value understanding wrong, we absolutely pissed off all our customers. Now, there's a good part to this story, because what I did was I said, oh, I got it. I took their deposit for $500, did nothing for 4 weeks, built it and shipped it. Customers were happier. Absolutely happier, delighted now that their custom program absolutely performed for them. And then there was even a better stroke of cleverness, which is we decided to come up with the expedite program. We charged an extra $500, took their money early, built it in 2 weeks, but never less than 2 weeks, shipped it, and they were even happier because it wasn't about money, right? It was about the sense of getting all the elves in the factory to work on your bike. And it completely changed the definition. Now, I tell this story, it's a little bit of using our time today, but I tell this story because as you think about the things you do for your customers and your clients, all of you together, realize that sometimes the value is not quite what you do when you exchange $1 for a PO. Right? The value is often maybe that phone call, the person on the other end of the line, that little bit of extra advice that you can provide. Maybe it's during the setup period where you're actually doing some business coaching and consulting and not necessarily all about just those invoices getting paid, click, click, click on the way through. So be very careful as you think about continuous improvement to really understand value before you decide to make improvements to a work system. It's really vital that value gets well understood. Right?